I'm Mariana,
I'm Rebecca.
I'm Isabel.
and this is Storyboard. As you may have guessed from the name of our project, our main focus is telling stories. So today we wanted to tell you Johanna's story. This is Johanna. When we first met her, she was 16 years old and living in a low-income community in Los Angeles. She was incredibly shy, often sitting in the back of the room and not talking much. When we asked her to tell us about herself in a few sentences, she was overwhelmed. Her high school simply didn't provide her the writing and storytelling skills she needed. When you apply to college or for a job, you need to be able to create a personal narrative. And it wasn't that Johanna didn't know what to say. She was just never told that her personal narrative is important and worthy of being shared. Johanna is not alone. Studies have shown that underfunded schools in low-income communities do not prepare students for success. According to our research on New York and Los Angeles public schools, many schools are too focused on test scores, leaving students uninspired, lacking collaboration skills, and lacking the ability to craft compelling narratives. Research has proven that project-based programs, where students are collaborating, working on time management, and thinking about long-term aspirations, fill this gap in education. There's a clear need for project-based programs for low-income communities so that students like Johanna can have bright, successful futures.
This is where our program comes in. We started Storyboard in 2017 to provide free digital media programs to low-income students. Our mission is to fight income and education inequality by providing emerging storytellers the tools they need to tell their stories and strengthen their communities. Over the course of the program, students produce a mini documentary, photo essay, and article about an issue affecting their community. When we started this, Johanna couldn't write 3 sentences about herself. By the end of the program, she was telling a story in 3 different mediums using professional camera equipment and software.
So, how do we support this program? To keep Storyboard sustainable, we plan to provide digital storytelling programs to larger companies. According to market research, Story Center provides storytelling workshops to organizations like Apple, the United Nations, and universities like Brown and the lesser known, but just as prestigious, Swarthmore College. Here's a testimonial from a Swarthmore professor of Russian.
Whether you're a low-income student in Los Angeles or a high-powered executive at Apple, you need storytelling skills. This is why we developed our one-for-one model. When Storyboard provides a workshop for a business, this workshop will generate revenue that will in turn fund a completely free program for low-income youth. Our customers can choose from 3 focuses: craft your narrative for brand development, craft your image for impactful visual storytelling, and change your world for organizations looking to make an impact.
Let me tell you how we're better than our competitors. Although Story Center's programs are popular, our corporate customers receive valuable skills for less while also supporting a good cause. A 2014 Stanford study found that the one-for-one model is effective and lucrative because consumers prefer goods and services that reflect their values. USC and the New York Film Academy offer similar storytelling programs for youth, which can cost between $2,000 and $7,000. People in the nonprofit sector urged us not to start an education nonprofit because we would either fail or struggle. Our status as a social enterprise makes us unique because we are sustainable, which means we can make a greater long-term impact.
Based on the pricing for Story Center's programs, we determined the cost of 2-day, 1-week, and 2-week workshops, ranging from $500 to $2,500 per person. We project to increase the number of corporate workshops every year as we grow our network of clients. Each free summer program costs around $7,000. Our headquarters, equipment, and full staff by 2025 generated $90,000 in revenue that year. After fixed costs, we will have almost $130,000 to put towards summer programs and investments. We will work to market our brand through an active social media presence that engages with our target demographic. We also plan to maintain strong relationships with our community partners to further reduce costs.
Storyboard maintains our commitment to long-term impact by keeping in touch with our students and customers through a monthly newsletter, providing job opportunities, and fostering a diverse alumni network.
At the end of our 2018 program, we held a community showcase and Q&A. One audience member asked the students, "What did you take away from this experience?" One student was thrilled to get to use professional equipment and software. Another mentioned our field trip to BuzzFeed, where students met diverse creators who they looked up to. Through the process of telling their stories, they were empowered to use their voices and to envision bright, successful futures as storytellers and activists. And in case you're wondering, Johanna was the first to speak at the showcase. She said that more than anything, Storyboard inspired her to be bold. So the question is, are you bold enough to believe in us? Thank you for listening.
Well done, Storyboard. So I'm going to ask all of my judges to come and join us. Perfect. And we are going to start the Q&A. So as you'd like, keep up your screen to share. Though if you're not using it to speak, we ask that you take it down so we can see the sort of interchange between all of you. Okay? All right.
I'll go ahead. So first of all, thank you guys for taking the time to do this again, given the circumstances. I'm really curious, because you are a social enterprise, the customer and beneficiary kind of segmentation, and specifically, you know, it sounds like you have a really good handle on who your beneficiaries are. In terms of your customers, what kind of process did you go through to determine how and why what you're offering is more competitive than the other stuff out there? And how did you really kind of determine, I think, for your beneficiaries, that what you could offer was a better alternative?
Yeah, that's a great question. We do have a slide that we can show the potential customers that we have identified. But what sets us apart from our competitors would be our social justice program. So whereas Story Center focuses on professional development, we like to focus on the development of diverse storytelling. So there's this added benefit of a socially conscious public image that we can add to a company, and that is reflected really well for a company's image, that is.
Yeah, I'll just add on to that by saying that, you know, Story Center does offer, you know, these wonderful digital storytelling workshops for educators and for corporations, but they, you know, like Isabel said, don't have that kind of social justice spin, and they're not incorporating ideas of ethical engagement and social responsibility into their curriculum. So what we offer is this program that incorporates these ideas that, you know, so many companies now are really looking to incorporate into their own businesses, because customers want to engage with companies that they see are doing some kind of social good. And, you know, you can hire someone that focuses on social responsibility and vets your content in your company, or you can hire us and we can help you be the change that you want to see and transform your company from the inside out. So we're helping within the company with like the employee relations, and also with the external image and the branding, as you saw in the 3 different programs that we work with.
Right, and it's not just the external image, it's also the customer relations of that own particular company. If they can have engagements that are socially conscious and aware of the diverse demographic that they're trying to target, I think that they will reflect better on the company.
I can pick up on that thread, but first, just a tremendous kudos to the Swarthmore community and to Katie and the SIL for getting this event to happen. I'm very proud as a Swati to see this happening virtually. And Ariana, Isabel, and Rebecca, I'm just blown away by what you've already achieved in this effort. So credit to you all. My question picks up on that last question Marissa asked, which is, how will you market to these corporates? What if a corporate maybe is less interested in your social justice, social entrepreneurship narrative? You've talked a bit about how you're price competitive, but I can also imagine it being very difficult to get the attention of busy professional development and human resources officers in big companies that have a lot of competing priorities for how to spend their staff's time.
Yeah, that's a good question. We also have a great visual that would show you the cycle of how we begin to reach out to those companies. We do have some target companies, and we would reach out to their HR department. If that's a company that we've already identified, We also have a website, and we plan on dedicating a portion of our company to social media and marketing, because not only does that get our brand out to the corporate world, but also to the youth who are avidly using social media.
We also definitely plan on like taking advantage of our networks. So for example, when we run our summer programs, we're usually connected to our community partners through someone we know. So working with an organization where we know someone there that can bring us in to do workshops, and then they refer us to another company, and they refer us to another company, is another part of how we plan on expanding.
I wanted to certainly join Marissa and Nick in congratulating you folks on just an immense amount of work. And the presentation is a wonderful compliment to the amount of time and energy that you'd invested elsewhere. And it's clearly evident that there's a tremendous amount of passion, but you haven't just left it at the point of passion, that unimplemented or unenacted passion it makes for amazing poetry and unpublished novels, but not necessarily great businesses. And so it's really difficult. And I would argue that socially conscious enterprise, especially in this world of B Corps and other formations, a variety of LLCs that can go there, that if anything, it's more difficult to set that up. But that ends up then being a segue to exactly the same issue, maybe slightly different view of it, that Marissa and Nick brought up. And that's that the extent to which you folks have your hands around the beneficiaries and the passion and the focus on that comes through right from the beginning of the report, or the ideation plan that you have here. What's less clear is that you fully understand what you're calling the customer there. Now, ultimately, separating customer and beneficiary is a little bit risky because everybody's a customer in this, and there's an opportunity cost even to the beneficiaries putting time or effort into part of this. But if you're going to call the customers customers, then they have to be treated as such as well for that. And I had literally written down before Nick had asked, it's unclear how you plan to reach your target customers. You covered that to an extent for that. But this is an extraordinarily crowded and extremely noisy area that's involved, that even a relatively quick search on my part turned up lots and lots and lots of online. Now, in person, we're not going to get into COVID-19. You guys did a wonderful plan until the world was turned upside down a couple of months ago on these things. But one of the problems that comes about then is genuinely listen to Marissa and Nick on this, and that try to elevate the extent to which you can show that you understand the companies and customers as well. Even, and until you've been there, I was at Pfizer, the pharmaceutical company, at 85,000 employees the day that I left. Then it was 84,999. But the extent to which who is your target and what is the purchasing, the sell cycle to an organization, even if it's a smaller company, or even if you excel in going to nonprofits or other B Corps or something, that's certainly conceivable. But what happens with each of these, the sales cycle can be extraordinarily long, have the rug pulled on you. It's a challenge for that. And this brings to the big point, is the one knock on a lot of B Corps, especially the ones that are offering a service as their primary product, is scalability. And that each time you want to have a presence in a new location or new circumstance, you're not recreating your company from scratch, but to maintain the quality and to be able to control your costs, that you never get ahead of the game, or you may not. And so to what extent have you been able to get your head around scalability?
Right. Well, we mentioned in our pitch that we intend to have our headquarters established in Los Angeles within the next 5 years. That is because that's where Storyboard began. That's where we have the most strong connections with our partners. And yes, you do raise an excellent question about how are we going to expand past Los Angeles. We've actually already begun doing so with New York. We do have some established partners in New York, and we have some people there, and we've done a great deal of research. In terms of making this profitable, we have identified quite a lot of corporations that we would like to work with in New York, but I'm not quite sure if I completely understand your question.
Yeah, the sales process in terms of getting past the front door, obviously a lot of business connections, but how to be identified, especially in the first 2 or 3 years when you have identifiable costs, but the revenues are still out there in the future somewhere, that the sales cycle on something like this is quite long, and the sales process can be extraordinarily difficult.
Sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to add that in terms of like wrapping our heads around scalability, I think it's definitely like something that we've learned a lot about. And I know I personally learned a lot about it taking Denise Crossan's social entrepreneurship for social change class. And we started Storyboard 3 years ago in Los Angeles. Part of our original pitch was scaling up. And since then we've expanded to New York and Philly. And I think, yeah, it's just like something where we've really relied a lot on like personal connections and people just really believing in Storyboard.
Yeah, and also I want to add, our original plan actually was to start really small and target private schools and nonprofit like activist organizations that aren't engaged in digital media quite yet, but are looking to make a greater impact and maybe do that through digital media, but they don't have a ton of money to pay a full-time staffer that can do, you know, a videographer, photographer, whatever. So our goal initially is to target those companies. So we have had, we did an interview with this woman, Jessica Barty. She runs a nonprofit in New York that deals a lot with schools and private schools. And she said there's a huge need for this kind of program in private schools. And then through Story Center's client list, we can see that there's also a huge need for this with activist organizations and also larger companies. So that was our idea, was to start kind of small. And then as we build reputability and have more testimonials and such, we can kind of work our way up.
Yeah, and I would like to clarify that in terms of getting this off the ground, we were lucky enough to receive a grant from the CAL in the form of the Project Pericles grant. We also rely heavily on our partners to cover some location costs and just general fundraising. So at the moment, that's where we are financially. But in the future, we certainly would like to rely less on our partners and less on fundraising so that we can build a good reputation with our corporate customers.
We have time for one more question from judges.
Okay, awesome. Well, I guess I have a better understanding of both your customers and beneficiaries, but I want to kind of go to just the piece on how you're seeing this being sustainable. So I have some understanding of some of the costs that you plan to incur, you know, be it through the supplies and stuff that you need, the space, all of that. But with your revenue, what kind of assumptions are you making around just why you think you might have 6 1-2-day workshops versus the longer workshops? Could you just give me a better sense of just your thinking behind that?
Yeah, so we're projecting that in 2025, we'll be able to have our own space. So we'll have those costs out of the way. We won't have to pay for a location every year. And we'll also have a really large network of teaching artists. And so we'll be able to actually go to the companies and also hold workshops in our own space. And that'll help us hold more programs at once. And since the 2 days, you know, there's 365 days in the year, the 2-day programs are only 2 days. We can hold simultaneous programs. We can hold many, many more 2-day programs than we can do 1 week and 2 week programs. I'm sorry, I forgot the other part of your question. Would you mind repeating it?
Yeah, so it's just more around just the assumptions that you are making around why you might have, you know, the series of, be it 2-day workshops or a week-long workshop, why you think it might even be, let's say that you're assuming that it will be the 2-day workshop is sort of the majority. What makes you think that the customers that you have, you would be able to have at least 6 of them, or whatever your projection is?
Yeah, I think that our assumption is that we're going to be, you know, with the really, really large companies that may want the longer workshops, we're going to have fewer of those. And in the future, we're going to have more of these like smaller companies, like those activist nonprofits, the private schools, and just like overall like smaller companies that are looking to make a social change. And that those companies will be more interested in the 2-day workshops because they're cheaper and they're quicker, and maybe they have to spend more time on other things because maybe there's 5 people in the office and, you know, they don't have, you know, 2 weeks to spend on something when they're occupied with their own business.
And this is also modeled off of Story Center's mission, which does, like we mentioned, workshops at universities, businesses, nonprofits, stuff like that. And we talked to some people who had participated in those workshops to see the impact that those workshops had, and definitely came to the conclusion that like they did have impact.